It's time for Sporting a Cause here on Robin Hood Radio, and Sporting a Cause proudly announces that as of this morning, well, Willie and I are both totally vaccinated. Good morning, Willie.
Good morning, Marshall. We could actually be talking right next to each other without fear, right?
That's exactly right.
Things going on this week. There are some events that have been going on for a period of time that are winding down. Some are still going on, and some new things to talk about. Today is the final ham shoot, believe it or not, for the Northwest Connecticut Rod and Gun Club. That's been going on for 8 weeks. They fund their conservation programs and so forth with that. That'll end the shoots until the fall when the turkey shoots start up before Thanksgiving, and there's some pistol competitions in between sprinkled around the middle of the year that I'll talk about when they're organized. The Brody Park Raffle continues. Folks can buy a $50 ticket to win a Cub Cadet utility vehicle. They limited their ticket sales to 550, so to increase your chances, it's a really nice prize. And as I've said before, I cover this raffle. It's not a sports event, but it replaces one. The Brody Park Run Around the Lake was canceled because of the pandemic. So if a nonprofit is running an alternative event to try to raise money because their sports-related fundraiser disappeared, then I'll put it on my website. And now, also the Polar Plunge in Massachusetts ends today. That's been going on for about a month and a half. Instead of a live event, they turned theirs virtual. Typically, it would be held up in the Pittsfield area, but they turn virtual so it can be done anywhere, and that winds up today. The Polar Plunges, of course, raise money for Special Olympics. Each state runs their own programs. Now, Marshall, I've got some events coming up and some talk about events that I think bring a sense of optimism about where we're headed. We're not out of the woods, we all know that, but some of the events that I'm going to talk about feel like things are getting better. The Gilbert School, for example, in Winsted, they're promising information about this year's golf tournament and 5K race. Typically, they run both of those events on the same weekend. They raise money for their athletic program. That was all wiped out last year because of the pandemic. And typically, they hold their events very early in May, almost the first week. They promised information about that. As soon as I have it, I'll let you all know. Berkshire South Regional Community Center is holding their annual swimathon in person this year. That was canceled last year. That's happening on April 10th and 11th. And as always, they're raising money for their adaptive sports program. And they've made some accommodations because of the pandemic to keep swimmers safe. And if you're interested, you can check on sportingacause.com for those details. The next is the Efund Scramble Golf Tournament. That's going to be held at Undermountain Golf Course on May 1st. That's the first golf tournament of the season so far. Trish MacArthur, who runs the place, along with other tournament organizers, learned last fall how to safely hold an event, how to hold an in-person golf tournament after the whole summer of cancellations. So I'm pretty confident that starting this spring, we'll see a lot of those golf tournaments come back, again with the precautions. Masks and social distancing will still be in play. I'm quite sure there won't be any gatherings for lunch or dinner or anything like that, but we'll be able to golf, and that's a big step forward that we didn't have, at least in the beginning months of last year. The Spring Splash, unfortunately, this year has been canceled again. That's the annual run into cold water at Lakeville Lake that benefits the Jane Lloyd Fund. But the students at Hotchkiss School are holding their own splash to raise money for the Jane Lloyd Fund. It's a closed event because the students and everybody at Hotchkiss are in a kind of a bubble, so the public can't come in, but still they're raising money. They raised last year. They raised $1,000 virtually because the Jane Lloyd event had been canceled, and they hope to do even better this year. And Marshall, is another sign of good things to come. The Walk to End Alzheimer's has announced that they are planning an in-person walk later this year. Last year they made it virtual, last year all the major walks have been virtual, like the Buddy Walk, the Parkinson's, Out of the Darkness, the Crop Walk, Walk for Recovery, ALS Walk, and on. They all went virtual, or were just plain canceled altogether. And now the Alzheimer's Association has announced an in-person event. There's tend to be later in the year, like early fall, September and October, so there's a while to go before that happens. But I take that as a really good sign, and I hope the others follow suit and do the same thing. Masks and distancing, I'm sure, will still be in effect, and that's okay. That's pretty much it. Next week, Marshall, I want to talk. I've done this before, like last year, I guess. I want to talk a bit about the flurry of the manufactured virtual running events that we see all over the place on Facebook. These are races that are not sponsored by any charities. They're just organized by a for-profit company, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But lots of times there's confusion about where people's money goes if they sign up for an event. They might think that a portion of it's going to charity. It's not necessarily so. So I'll talk about that at some length next week. And about Rob's Sit-Up for the week.
Now, before we go, I was talking to Willie before we got on the air. He let loose a nice story that I think you should pass along to about a member of SWASA and the achievements and shows really basically what Salisbury Water Sports Association is all about.
Sure. I can't give this kid enough publicity. Seth Gardner has been a junior jumper at SWASA for years. He started off in our junior jumping program, went up through the ranks. As they always do, they start on the little baby hill, and they work their way up to the 30-meter hill. If they're interested to keep going, they often will travel up to Lake Placid to take on their 48-meter hill. It's this progression of bigger and bigger hills. And Seth became the first jumper in our program to jump off our big hill in years. I don't even know when the last person was. But not only that, he has for 4 times for the last 4 years made the junior national team, which is a big deal. That's the junior national team in the Eastern Division, which is a very competitive one. And he's competed in 3 out of the 4 years at the USA Nordic Junior Nationals. The 1 year he didn't is because it was canceled because of COVID. And he's just a great kid. Earlier in the season, he was for the Christmas competition, the 2-day jump clinic, and after that he was helping training the youngsters. And as I wrote on Facebook, he continues a tradition that started with the Satries back in the 1920s of these great skiers who are jumpers who passed along their information to the next generation of jumpers, and that happened generation after generation after generation. And now Seth continues that by working with the little ones. So. All of us at SWAS are very, very proud of him, and I'm not sure where he'll go from here. I think he's participated in his last junior nationals because of his age. That's for 19-year-olds and under. But whatever he does, I'm sure he'll be successful because he's proven that.
And it's one of the things that when you get set up and you do an event and you're young and you go into an organization like the Salisbury Water Sports Association, it's not one of those things that's one and done. It really does leave an impression for life. Yeah,
you talk to kids who've gone through the program. They're not kids anymore. They're adults and young adults and not so young anymore who over the years, way back when jumped. And when they talk about what that gave them, probably the number one thing is confidence. If you jump off a hill and go head first out into midair, and you rely on your body and your ability to let you land safely, that makes you confident. And you can tell a kid, around Jump Fest, they're jumpers, they're young jumpers, and they're intermingling with the people. Not this year so much, but you can tell a young jumper, because they'll look an adult in the eye as they shake their hand. They carry themselves with not arrogance, but just self-confidence, because that's one of the things that jumping has done for them.
It's an amazing organization you're associated with there, Willie.
Well, I'm proud to be a part of it.
All right, Willie, we'll check with you next week with Sporting a Cause.
Okay, Marshall. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care. Willie Hallihan, once again, Sporting a Cause. You'll find it at sportingacause.com on the web.